cut across to breaking news coming in. Kerala story makers who are now making a U-turn before the Kerala High Court. The makers tell the Kerala High Court that the maintainability of the case should be decided before the movie is screened for the judges tomorrow. In the morning session, the court had asked the makers to arrange a screening and the makers had agreed to do so. High Court said that the makers don't seem keen on the court watching the movie. The matter is now to be considered tomorrow by the High Court. Let me take this to my colleague Nalini to understand what this means, Nalini, with the makers making a demand asking the court to decide on the maintainability before they watch the film. Is it in the hands of the makers to file a plea like that, to make a demand like that? What is the High Court likely to decide tomorrow?
Well, Suresha, it's interesting what's happening because this was essentially a PIL that was filed before the Kerala High Court on which this entire hearing was being conducted. So even though in the first half, in the pre-lunch session, the makers had agreed that they will screen the movie for the judges for them to be able to watch the movie before taking a decision tomorrow. But when they came back after the post-lunch session, which means that they'd gotten the lawyers for the producers, had gotten some time to speak to the makers themselves and find out whether or not the screening can happen. In the post-lunch session, they came back and they told the bench that first the bench must decide whether this is actually a public interest litigation or whether this is a publicity or a private interest litigation that has instead been filed before the Kerala High Court. So before the screening takes place, this needs to be decided. The maintainability of this plea needs to be decided by the High Court is what the makers said, to which the judges responded, saying that it seems like the makers are not keen to screen the movie at all. The matter was not heard for long. It was just a barely 2 to 3 minute hearing that happened in the post-lunch session, after which the judge decided that the matter will be taken up tomorrow. But what this means essentially, Suesha, is that the screening tomorrow might not be certain. It's still, there's a cloud still hanging over the entire screening. As to whether or not it will happen tomorrow will depend on the hearing that happens before the High Court first.
All right, Nalini, do stay on. Let's also take this to our colleague Shivimol, who's been tracking all the developments on this story. Shivimol, to really understand two things. Can the court object on the title of the film, given the fact that even the makers have accepted that these are pan-India stories? These are not stories that are just restricted to Kerala. Can they also decide whether the film will be released in Kerala itself, just the state of Kerala? And can they also mark edits or lay conditions on how the film releases in Kerala? Also the fact that the film with the original release date on the 27th. Now, with the delay that we see with the Kerala High Court watching the film tomorrow and now tomorrow to decide the maintainability, is there a possibility that there will be a delay in the release date if that is so?
Well, there could possibly be a delay because we have seen these kind of instances before also where the films have not released on the scheduled date earlier because of the proceedings that's happening in the court. To answer your first question, yes, there could be a possibility. We have seen in the past, like when a film like Janaki versus State of Kerala came before the Kerala High Court, there was a requirement that the name had to be edited and they had to add an initial before Janaki saying that it's We Janaki versus State of Kerala. So we have seen slight changes being added to names of the films, but this is if you're renaming and removing Kerala from Kerala story, then the entire identity of that film is being completely removed. So we don't know if the court will go to that extent of asking them to change the name entirely, but there could be some suggestions that might come in based on the court's decision after watching the film. But yes, there could be a delay in the release also because as of now, after the second hearing, after the morning hearing, the court had ordered to hear the matter at around 1:45. After that, it looks like the court has not yet decided when and where to watch the film. So in the morning hearing, the court had directed the makers to decide a time and decide a place and inform the court as to where the court can watch the film. But that has not been decided yet. So possibly in tomorrow's hearing, in the morning session, they might listen to all of it, all the arguments again. There are multiple issues that's been raised in the afternoon. So all of that will be heard by the court. And if possible, the court will watch the film in the evening. If not, it will be done on a later date. That means the film's release might get delayed. Based on stalling the release of the film in Kerala, that is very unlikely because we have never heard that such instances, at least in the recent past, even when the Kerala Story 1 was released, it was not banned by the Kerala government, or there was no bans as such imposed by the courts also. So that is a very less possibility. There's very less possibility as far as that is concerned. But changes, yes, that we have seen today. Court also hinted at it, saying that when a film like Hal was brought before the court had suggested certain certain additions and certain additions to the film, and certain scenes have to be edited. So in that case, Kerala story might also have to go through it, is what
Right.
the court clearly said today. So there could be some changes here and there, but not really to that extent of the film being stopped from screening in Kerala.
All right, crucial day tomorrow for the makers of the film. Shibi, I request you to stay on with us as we have more news coming in from Kerala. Nalini, many thanks for putting that into perspective for us.